Hey, greetings everybody. It is GleeCon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. On our last episode, we played through the middle of the Teldrassil starting zone as a Night Elf Druid, and had another one bite the dust in the Ben Ethel Barrow Dens. We also have been reading through the Northrend areas in Lands of Mystery, which is a Dungeons & Dragons campaign take on World of Warcraft zones through the eyes of Bran Bronzebeard. And we're going to finish up the last kind of geographical chapter, which is on Northrend, and this is Zul'Drak. So stay a while and listen to Zul'Drak. The capital is Gundrak. It's mostly troll, as we know. And really, it's undead troll. So let's kind of read some about that. Climate-wise, Zul'Drak is the least pleasant of the eastern regions. It's colder than the Grizzly Hills or the Howling Fjord, less majestic than the Storm Peaks, and more crowded than any of them. And most of the crowd is Drakkari. This region is the trolls' homeland, and they swarm the place looking for intruders and prey. I can't see much to recommend Zul'Drak. It does have Drakkari ruins, which are interesting. It's a pity trolls aren't better historians. Most other races avoid this region, and for good reason. You don't even need it for passage north or south. You can stick to the Grizzly Hills, which surround Zul'Drak on both sides, and reach all the way up to Crystal Song Forest and the Storm Peaks. The only reason I can see for wandering through Zul'Drak is if you want to meet the Drakkari. And you better have a large group of armed warriors with you when you do. People and culture. As I said, this is the Drakkari homeland. Judging by the ruins, their culture was here long before the Great Sundering. They live here by the thousands, which at least means they aren't anywhere else. It's amazing this one land can support so many trolls, especially since fresh meat is their principal food. Fortunately for them, wild beasts roam the area as well and provide plenty of prey. Drakkari are unpleasant. They epitomize the nastiness and barbarism of trolls everywhere, except for perhaps the Dark Spears. They're large, bigger than any other troll I've seen, and by this point I think I've seen them all, and crude, and they prefer violence to discussion or negotiation. They're barbaric people who practice voodoo and worship strange spirit gods and devour their enemies and sometimes their friends raw. The only thing a Drakkari respects is strength, and the only thing they want from others is fear and flesh. Fortunately, Drakkari are tribal. They live in small tribes throughout Zul'Drak and wage war among themselves. I saw bands of Drakkari slaughtering each other simply because they met along the border between their two tribes. Such conflict helps keep the troll population down. No one else is foolish enough to share the region with them. Geography. Zul'Drak is a single large valley between the arms of the Grizzly Hills, Crystal Song Forest, and the Storm Peaks. The trees here are smaller than the southern forest, but numerous and upright, and provide excellent cover when sniping trolls. Some grass and other plants poke up through the snow, and frozen ponds and streams dot the land. Obelisks and ziggurats are everywhere, often at the center of active troll camps. Ruins show where troll tribes must have lived long ago. Most of these look like they were destroyed during battle rather than simply abandoned. The valley teems with life. In addition to the Drakkari, giant wolves, Wendigo, and other animals live among the trees and grass. Furbolgs wander up from the Grizzly Hills to hunt and clash with the Drakkari. The trolls maintain patrols along their border both to drive out intruders and kill anyone they find. Sites and settlements. Troll villages are everywhere in Zul'Drak. Most of these are small, crude places, a handful of wood or stone buildings around a single larger hall. Some are built on the ruins of older structures or surround an ancient obelisk or ziggurat, carved from stone and more impressive than the more recent structures. The only large settlement is Gundrak, the capital city. And they give us the stats of Gundrak here. It's easy to forget that trolls are even remotely intelligent until you see a place like Gundrak. This is the Drakkari capital, the only large city in Zul'Drak, and the home to the Drakkari Frost King. It is a massive place with thick walls, tall guard towers, and heavy gates. Inside, the buildings are tiered and covered in steps and wind about one another like a nest of small animals, each fitting into the next. The architecture here is almost identical to that of Zuldazar in the South Seas. The Drakkari are crude and violent, but there is a modicum of organization in the city. Women and whelps handle most of the cleaning, food preparation, and clothing needs. Those unfit for battle do manual labor or simple crafts. Many of the buildings have rough carvings along their walls, and war trophies are interspersed with furs. Chores are handled quickly and efficiently to make time for drinking, eating, and combat. Warriors fight frequently, from mere wrestling matches to armed death duels, and brawls occur at every meal. Rather than stop this, the Frost King uses these conflicts to gauge the strength of his warriors, selecting the victors for favored missions. Yeah, this Frost King. His name is. It says his name somewhere right on here. Malak. I don't know if that's a guy that's in there. Of course, the Drakkari do not welcome visitors, at least not as guests. Sometimes a couple furbolgs told me a warrior who has demonstrated his strength may be invited to dine with the Drakkari, and his safety is then guaranteed until the end of his meal. After that, however, he may find himself a target of the assembled tribes. Trolls are unpredictable, though, so an adventurer attempting this tactic may find himself part of the meal. The best way to enter Zul'Drak is by slipping in unnoticed. Sometimes the Drakkari are too busy fighting and drinking to look down. History. The Drakkari ice trolls are an old race, one of the first in Northrend, and perhaps one of the first in all Azeroth. They were building homes in Zul'Drak before the Great Sundering and never departed, though some of them may have migrated south and become the jungle trolls and the other troll races. I'm still trying to figure out which trolls came first. The furbolgs of Grizzlemaw have fought the Drakkari for many years, and they told me something of their culture. The furbolgs are probably making some assumptions, but my assumption is that their tales are mostly true. Thus far, the Scourge has not penetrated into Zul'Drak to any degree, though it claims Drak Keep, an old Drakkari stronghold in the Grizzly Hills just beyond Zul'Drak's southwest edge. Yeah, and that's obviously the biggest change is now this is 100% Scourge zone. Drakkari history, as told to Bran Bronzebeard by Rurson and Gorok, Grizzlemaw furbolgs. Drakkari are tribal, and early in their history, each tribe established its own territory and fought off any trespassers. Then one tribe conquered another and enslaved its warriors. These slaves were forced to build the victors a new and larger home, and their children became part of the dominant tribe. This tribe continued to conquer its neighbors, each time absorbing them, until finally it was powerful enough to claim all of Zul'Drak as its kingdom. Any tribe that resisted was destroyed. Those tribes that accepted the powerful tribe's dominance were allowed to keep their own territories, provided they accepted any orders from the ruling tribe. Thus the Drakkari nation truly began. The central tribe's home became Gundrak, the capital city. The tribes still war among themselves, and the Frost King allows this because it keeps his people strong and aggressive. He coordinates border patrols and establishes protocols for calling all the tribes together should an army attack them in force. Many tribe chieftains thought these efforts foolish until they encountered the Walking Dead. Then the Frost King organized the other Drakkari and drove the dead from their lands. Adventures. Zul'Drak belongs to the Drakkari, who roam in hunting parties searching for prey. Old troll ruins are strewn across the countryside, and the Scourge hovers just beyond the western border waiting for a chance to strike. Here's the quest, Ancient Home. An explorer mentions hiding in an old troll's ziggurat in Zul'Drak and stretches some of the markings he saw there. Sketches. Yet these markings are not Zendali, the troll language, and they look too complex for the barbaric Drakkari to have fashioned, at least in their present state. Is the ziggurat from some other race? Or were the trolls more intelligent and more sophisticated long ago? Why highlighted? Oh yeah, waiting on a word from Blizz. I'll nudge them. Interesting. So that's a funny little meta. This is so here we have Bran Bronzebeard in character making a comment that he's highlighted something because he's waiting to hear from Blizzard about it. That's interesting. So I guess we're waiting to see. I wonder. Yeah. So basically, it also lets us know in this book they're getting insight, like they're getting approval. Hey, can we put this in there? And I think that's cool. So this is definitely very, very close to canon adjacent, even though it's not technically canon. All right, we got another episode in the pipe. 5x5. I thank you so much for watching and listening, and I hope that you enjoyed it. See you next time on Lore of Warcraft.